Awesome. Well, this is a little bonus episode of Conversations with Jack. Prior to the last show, I was a little worried that we might not have a guest show up, which ended up great. And I had a great episode with Andrea about Cosmos Cash. And I would really encourage you to go check that out. Check out the Omniflix Media channel for the link there. But I'm going to go ahead and answer those questions that folks submitted on Telegram. So first one, with Adam's stake rate staying around 70% is good for security, or is Adam's stake rate staying around 70% good for security of the Gravity DEX? What would it take to try to compromise a network with a 70% stake rate, assuming all current validators remain honest and don't collude with the party trying to hostile takeover? So this is a great question that sort of gets to proof of stake security. And proof of stake security says that as long as 2/3 of the bonded stake remains honest, and that means doesn't try to cheat the protocol, all of the security assumptions hold and the system will be straight. So if we're assuming honest validators and a 70% stake rate, the only risk there is somebody with a new validator getting all of the remaining stake and then staking it to try to have more of a network influence. That's extremely unlikely with a 70% stake rate. Not only is there a lot of tokens that might be potentially lost, maybe 1 to 5% of atoms would be my guess. There are a lot of tokens that are used in exchanges. There are a lot of tokens that folks are kind of trading back and forth. And it's highly unlikely that one party would gain a significant share of those to be able to affect the existing bonded set. Now, if stake rate goes down, let's say you've only got a 20% stake rate on your network, there's 80% of stake that's floating around out there that could suddenly become bonded and potentially be used to try to take over the network. So a lower staking rate means lower security with that sort of base proof of stake model. And the risk is one actor buying up a large chunk of stake that's not bonded, bonding it, and then using that to influence network governance. So very happy with the current network staking rate, and very happy with the current network staking rate, and I think that's awesome. Okay, next question. Will Terra users and other chains be able to access Mirror and Anchor and other apps directly from the Emeris dashboard UI? I'm not on the Emeris team. I don't know. But I do know that all of the assets over on Terra and all of the Terra protocols will be available via IBC once they upgrade. So, as somebody in the US who has limited access to Terra and Luna, their currency, as well as the stablecoin UST, I'm very personally excited about giving that a try and utilizing some things like Anchor Protocol, which I haven't personally tried out yet. So looking forward to that. Next question, the importance of the Cosmos Hub staying the course and why shared security will be one of many. So I don't necessarily know the full thing of this, but the importance of the Cosmos Hub staying the course is something I really can't downplay. Jay and Bucky and Zaki and the folks who were really crucial at the beginning of Cosmos came up with this architecture back in 2015. Before ETH2, before any of these other scaling things. And we as a community, and it's more than just those initial founders, there's a lot of people, hundreds of folks, and a lot of them watch this show, who've been attracted to that vision and have continued to drive that forward. And what we've done is continue to execute ruthlessly on this shared vision of this internet of blockchains that enables personal freedom all over the world. And I think that staying the course on continuing to implement that vision is extremely important, because not only does that bind us together and give us shared goals, but also that vision is extremely powerful. If you look at a centralized chain like Polkadot that's gone out and raised billions of dollars to build a centralized version of what we're building, I think it shows you the amount of value in the software that we're developing and the things that we're building as a community. And if we want to capture some of that value as Atom holders and as the Cosmos Hub, we need to ship shared security. I'm definitely going to be working on that. I'm currently working on the Gravity Bridge, primarily in the Sommelier protocol. But as shared security gets closer, I will definitely be involved in trying to drive that to completion. So shared security, critical. The shared vision that we have of a future of Cosmos, also critical. Okay, who is working on shared security and what is the expected timeline of it? So that's a great question. There are a couple of teams working on shared security. The first and most important one right now is the informal systems team. Now, the way that this kind of gets to another question that I'll get to next, which is talk about a little bit more about the teams building on Cosmos. I think that I said recently, I envision Cosmos more as one huge company with a bunch of divisions, where each of the sort of individual companies working on Cosmos are one of the divisions. And if you kind of step back and conceptualize Cosmos that way, it makes a lot more sense in traditional frameworks. But I think that folks have trouble with this because the edges of sort of like where is the ecosystem are a little fuzzy, and in each of those entities is really truly independent. So it makes it a little confusing. Informal systems and the ICF and Interchain Berlin, you can think of those entities kind of as the deep core engineering teams and the research organization within Cosmos. So with a new feature like shared security, which is got a lot of complicated cryptography, has a lot of complicated security assumptions that need to be worked through in a really formal modeling manner, informal systems and the Interchain Berlin team have that expertise and are driving forward the initial versions of the protocol and working through a lot of the deep, hard technical problems right now. Once that research progresses to a certain point, another team, potentially two, are going to take that research and they're going to start working on implementation and concrete usage of this protocol. And we'll probably see those conversations are kind of beginning to happen now. I know that Tenderman and the AIB team are very interested in driving forward shared security. I've heard the Osmosis team talking about it quite a bit. There's a few of the components that are going to be needed for shared security that are being driven forward by the Regen team, various members of Interchain Berlin. So, unlike a traditional company where we can say, hey, there's this big project, there's this one project lead, what I can say is that there is a broad consensus in the entire Cosmos that in the universe of these Cosmos companies, that this is a necessary piece that we need. There are people stepping up to deliver some of those pieces, and there are more folks stepping up to kind of grab that torch when it's time and pull it forward. I'm still anticipating shipping Interchain security this year, and we'll be working towards that. What's the similarity and difference between Interchain accounts and the Emeris approach? I don't know what this question is, but Interchain accounts allows you to use IBC to control an account on one chain from another chain. Now, I think that most of the exciting use cases here are around governance. An account that's controlled by governance that's able to transact with other chains. That's really cool. There's a bunch of other, Billy Ringkamp has written some really cool articles about some of the potentials of shared security. There's potential there to use shared security as a primitive to implement staking derivatives. Not a solution I'm personally particularly excited about because of some trade-offs, and it would require people to unbond and then rebond, which is a significant cost. Truly liquid staking derivatives is definitely more of I would prefer an implementation path that went that way for the Cosmos Hub. So that's what Interchain accounts is, and I would encourage folks to go read it a bit more about that. Emeris is more of a multi-chain wallet and asset manager. So instead of being deep in the protocol, Emeris sits on top of all of the protocols and helps you as a user manage all of your complex interactions with these various pieces of on-chain machinery. Really looking forward to using Emeris when it comes live. And I wish I could talk about it more, but I can't because I haven't even seen the latest stuff because I don't work at Tenderman. That's not the division of Cosmos that I work in. Okay, next question. Also, the similarities and differences of IBC connected chains versus normal bridges between non-IBC chains. Also, what makes IBC security unique? So really, conceptually, there's only a couple of ways to build bridges. And basically the way they work is you're either locking up or burning an asset on one side and then minting it on the other side. And then when you go back and forth, it does that. And the ways that you can verify state on another chain are either through a multi-sig account or a light client. So with that in mind, there's roughly two kinds of bridges. There's kind of like multi-sig bridges, and then there's light client bridges. And light client bridges are much more crypto native. They're much more trustless. IBC is a generalized light client bridge technology. So when you hear stuff like the Rainbow Bridge and all of these other bridges, they're basically copying IBC, but it's probably crappier. The one thing that really separates IBC is we have put in the work to get countless audits. I think we've had 3 or 4 audits by major audit firms on IBC. In addition, the protocol is formally verified. If you don't know what formal verification is, I would encourage you to go check it out. But this is a huge differentiator, and it gives me a lot of confidence in the security of this IBC protocol. And I think that we see with the recent Thorchain hacks and a bunch of other bridge hacks lately, those pieces of software that move assets between chains are very, very complex. And IBC is no exception. But what makes IBC different is the number of eyes that have been on it, the amount of auditing and formal verification that's gone into it, as well as the production testing that it's had now. So that's what makes IBC security unique. And that's what sets IBC apart from the rest of the pack. Piggybacking off this a little bit, explain the many parties involved in Cosmos and how it's beneficial. It would appear that many people do not realize there are multiple parties building out infrastructure, maintaining the SDK, and building new modules. That's correct. There's a ton of companies building in the Cosmos. And I work really hard to kind of talk about all of the things that I find most exciting. But I think that there's even people out there who could have an entirely different set of things to talk about within Cosmos without doing it. I see Nicholas Martinez pointing out that there's questions in the live chat. I'm going to get to those as well, but I'm going to try to get through these too. I've mentioned a ton of parties working on Cosmos in this channel. I am personally at my validator company also working on a lot of this stuff. I build Cosmos. Zucky builds Cosmos. We're hiring teams that build Cosmos. I've got a few engineers that work for me in a couple of different startups that help build Cosmos. So there's a lot of teams and people building Cosmos. This is not the place for an exhaustive list, but suffice it to say, it's an extremely active community. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to the beginning when you started working on Cosmos, what are some of the things you would do differently? I would kill Amino way earlier. So thank you for the question, Nicholas. Now, taking a peek at the questions in the chat, Sislik getting on top of it. This is up. Let's go. None asks, hi, Jack. Knowing what you know now, could you go back at the beginning of Cosmos, and what are some of the things you would change or prioritize differently? Killing Amino earlier is definitely something I would prioritize differently. Building out the JavaScript framework for working on top of the Cosmos SDK is something I would prioritize more. I think that the ability to build front ends right now on top of Cosmos, definitely better than it ever has been. Still rough compared to Ethereum and other ecosystems. So those are kind of the two technical things that I would definitely prioritize more. For people new to crypto or skeptical of it, all being a casino Ponzi, how would you explain the future real-world use cases of something like Cosmos to them? That's a great question. In traditional crypto in Bitcoin fashion, I would start by saying, well, if you look at the traditional financial system, it looks a hell of a lot like a Ponzi to me. And as somebody who lost a ton of money and like a career in 2008, because I was going to go work in traditional finance, but I ended up not, because not only was the company that I worked for out of business, but no one was hiring. So I would say that crypto looks no more or less of a traditional Ponzi than the traditional financial system. And what it enables is more ownership, sovereignty over all of your assets, and it enables you as an individual a lot more freedom within this financial world. So that's a really broad thing to say, but practically what it means is, this world of it taking 2 days to settle a bank transfer, having to walk into a bank to send $1,000. Like this is the kind of nanny state that crypto is fighting. And it comes from these corporations and these regulations that are really unjust. And actually what they do is decrease financial inclusion. Whereas crypto is extremely pro financial inclusion. Anyone with a computer, anyone with the ability to create private keys can go on these systems and transact. And this is kind of what's fundamentally democratic about crypto, and one of the reasons that I'm super excited about it. None coming up with some questions. Let's go, Nicholas. Decentralization has pros and cons. One con being the Cosmos ecosystem has no face to it, the way something like Cardano has Charles or Tron has Justin. Many people would agree that having you as the face of Cosmos would be extremely beneficial to the brand and the ecosystem as a whole. Is something like that even under consideration or even possible? You are brilliant and amazing and also handsome. Thank you, Nicholas. I really appreciate that. This is the beauty and the sadness of Cosmos is no individual is the face. And, far be it for me to want to do that. Like, all I am is somebody who found this technology and has worked really hard to get it adopted and, also helped build it. There are folks who came before me that kind of came up with this. And that is, those are the folks that I really look up to, the Buckies and the Zackies and the Jays that initially launched this technology. So, I think that while in the short run, not having a face to the protocol might be a weakness. Much like decentralization in general, this is kind of front-loading a weakness, i.e. this is something that we don't have the advantage of having a single central figure to kind of rally around. We're working through that now. And I think to a large extent, the ecosystem has worked through this limitation, and we figured out ways to work around it. That makes the ecosystem much more anti-fragile. It makes it much more resilient to attacks by regulators, and it makes it much more resilient to market forces and conditions over the long run, because multiple individual actors, each for their own self-interested reasons, are building, maintaining, and educating people on this protocol and how it works all over the world. Korea, all over Europe, all over America, Latin America. Cosmos is everywhere. Cosmos is really, truly global, which is a cool piece of this. And I don't think that would be possible in the same way with a sort of central authority figure. So thank you very much, None. Dakar very correctly notes that actually banks are a Ponzi because you don't hold your own funds. I would strongly agree with that sentiment. Dakar asks, after IBC, what's the main focus for Cosmos? Adoption, and finally, adoption. So with that, I have to run. But that was a super fun bonus conversations with Jack. And thank you everyone for the questions. I will probably do one of these again soon. And thank you all very much for your time. Catch you soon.